Welcome to From Field to Plate with Larry Lewis. I'm the host for those that's new, tuning into the show first time. My name's Larry Lewis. This little show about just going out, enjoying the great outdoors, hunting, fishing, and bringing the food in and preparing it before you guys. We also do some other cooking. It all ain't just from field to plate, but that's the part of the show that we enjoy most, or I do. Today, we're actually doing a pheasant dish that is called actually a wild rice pheasant soup. And we did everything from scratch to even making our own stock. And that's what I want to talk about right now. This is just a basic pheasant stock. And whenever I kill my pheasants or quail or wild turkey or whatever, I always try to make stock with the bones, carcasses, or whatever. Sort of like our grandma used to make chicken dumplings. She'd take the whole chicken in there, boil it till it shreds apart, and then you'd have the stock, and that's kind of the same thing we're doing here. These pheasants come from some that was actually that we hunted, that I raised on the farm here in Kentucky, but we also have some from where we go out Kansas, go out hunting west. And then also we did a shoot this past weekend with the Appalachian Outdoorsman Association hosted a shoot for Kentucky Wounded Warriors, or Wounded Heroes for the state of Kentucky. And you all get to see some of that film along with this pheasant. So what I did, I got my water in here, got my pheasant carcasses and my pheasant meat that we're going to be using for soup. Cut up some carrots and celery, some garlic and onions to make a stock. And that stock will be the base of the soup, actually. The first thing I do is a big scoop. And I get all this pheasant out, and I'll put it in a bowl. And we'll let it cool, and we'll shred it, and it'll actually go back into the soup a little bit later. So we want to try to get all these carrots, celery, the carcasses, everything we use for it. We'll get it out. It ain't always eye appealing, this part of it, but this is a tradition that you really need to learn and use, because you can use every part of the animal, every bit of it, as far as making your bases, your stocks and stews. And that's what I like doing when I'm cooking. I try to use as much of it as you possibly can. And it just puts that much more depth into it. This has actually been cooking for about 6 hours now. Some stocks you want to cook overnight. And to make a stock, it's just you cook it slow and let all the goodness come out of the meat, bones, etc. And it makes a really good stock. You don't have to go to the store, which I do sometimes. You have to, and get it out of a carton or a jug or whatever. So we actually need 5 cups for this recipe, and I know we got quite a bit more than that. And I'll actually save this stock and use it for something later somewhere else. That's one good thing about it. You can freeze it and put it up, and use it for later on. I think I'm about full. Yeah. So we got our stock, we got our pheasant out, and we're going to let the pheasant cool, because you don't want to touch it right now because you'll burn your hands. And then we'll assemble the soup. And the soup today is pretty simple. It's got celery, carrots, onions, butter, mushrooms, a mixture of wild rice, pheasant, and just pheasant stock. And a little bit of cream to thicken it a little bit, along with flour to make a little bit of a roux. Like we've done on other shows, the roux is just a basic flour, oil mixture, and it thickens whatever soup or stew or gumbo, etc. that you're making. So now we're ready to get started on the stew, or the rice. It's wild rice from pheasant soup. Half a cup of butter, and I use just all natural stick butter on it. And it'll take a few minutes to melt this down. And then whenever it gets melted down, we actually will add our carrots, onions, celery, and mushrooms, and then let it cook down and thicken. So right now we'll add our celery. And it's a cup of each. Cup of celery, cup of carrots. Not really, it's about a third or half a cup of onion. And we actually, what we want to do is get it cooking, and you can hear it starting to cook now. And you want that to turn to a translucent color, all your vegetables. Just like when we've made gumbo or some of that in the past, we use our celery, carrots, onions, and get it to just like just a soft stage. And then we'll add our flour, which will be our thickener, like the roux that we always make. Our onions, carrots, and celery is ready. Now we can add the flour for a thickening agent. And you want to kind of just put it, just when you put it in, mix it all over it. And stir it in really good, because this is going to start getting thick really fast. And that's, if you can see that, it's kind of what it looks like when it starts getting thick. Okay, we don't want that to burn, so what we'll start doing is actually adding a little bit of this pheasant stock, about half of a cup, and we want to get it stirred in super good. And I'll show you another picture of it. See, it just keeps getting thicker as you put it in there. So we'll keep adding it. And at the same time, you want to add your milk and kind of mix them together and try not to make a mess. I'm good at making messes. Real good at it. So you get all that in there, and it'll slowly start thickening like you would if you was making a gravy, roux, like I've said before, we make several times. Pheasant is actually one of my favorite birds to hunt. It's a real pretty bird, especially when you're out west, out on the plains, and you're walking through those plains, and all of a sudden you hear a cackle and a big pheasant fly up and its tail hanging down, and just the colors of the bird. It's just, I guess it's one of those things you picture if you was a pioneer or going out west for the first time and walking, and you just walk through prairie and you see all this wild game. And first time I saw that, that's kind of like, I had to step back a moment and reflect upon what it must have felt like, be first time seeing that. So it is exciting. And that's one of the things I look forward to every year is our annual trip to going to Kansas quail and pheasant hunting. And it's fun, with friends, and have such a good time going out there and hunting. So what we'll do, we'll let this get back up to temperature. And you want to kindly keep it stirred, because that flour is it's not going to be a super thick soup, but it's going to thicken it quite a bit. And to that, we want to add about 2 cups of mushrooms. If you have wild mushrooms, morels, would be awesome. Shiitake's fine, oyster mushrooms. This is just baby portobello mushrooms and some basic store mushrooms that you can go and get some at. But you can use any kind of mushroom, a mixture of any kind of mushrooms. It brings the earthy tone to this soup. Next thing we're going to add, after this gets back up to heat, we got a mixture of like a 5-6 grain rice. It has white, brown, wild rice, red rice. I like using this mixture because it gives it color and it gives it a lot of different flavors other than just white or brown rice. So 1 cup of cooked rice we're going to put in this. The recipe also will be posted online for those that want to make this. And you might say, well, I don't have pheasant or don't have no wild game. That's fine. Leftover turkey, Thanksgiving, you can make a stew of a fall. Do you chicken up, boil it, use chicken stock, make it out of chicken. You can make it out of any kind of poultry. You don't have to be wild game. And then this is our pheasant that we took out that we made the stock. This is 2 pheasants, and it's just what we use for the stock. It's shredded. You just pour it in there, and then after you get that poured in there and all your ingredients, you let this come together and it has to cook about 20 minutes till it gets hot and cook through everything that's done. Our wild rice and pheasant soup has come together greatly. Give you a good close-up shot of it. Got the rice, carrots, celery, onions. I mean, it just smells wonderful. I know y'all can't smell it out there, but it smells great. It's pretty simple. Bowl of it's a meal. You don't need you don't really need no side dishes or nothing. I mean, it's just comfort. And sometimes I'll dice up some green onion and put on top of it as a garnish if you like it. You don't have to. And get a few more mushrooms. There's usually some fresh cracked pepper on top. And then toasted bread, and that's pretty much the meal. We appreciate you guys, and we thank you all for tuning in to this episode from Field to Plate with Larry. We look forward to our next show. Y'all can be with us. This recipe will be online. I'd like to thank MTTV for the opportunity to be able to film here and do this show. Look forward to you guys watching some of the film that's in the making with the Kentucky Wounded Heroes, and the film that they're doing for AOA, which is part of that hunt. And hopefully this corresponds with that and get some of y'all interested in pheasant hunting and making these kind of good meals. Thanks. Welcome to From Field to Plate with Larry Lewis. For those that's never tuned in or watched the show, I'm the host, Larry Lewis. I'm excited for today's dinner that we're doing. It's actually, you see my funky purple hands here. So, and there's a reason for that, because I'm getting ready to handle poetry, so don't think nothing of it while I'm talking. But we're getting ready to do a pheasant stir fry. And those that don't know, pheasant's not originally from the United States. It's actually an Asian bird that was introduced in the plains out west and adapted well. So you think stir fry pheasant, it's actually more common than you think, because they've been doing it in China, South Korea and stuff for hundreds of, not thousands of years, because it's native to that country. So I thought that was a little tidbit of interesting news. On this show, if you've never tuned in, we kindly try to do wild game and bring it from field to plate, of course, is the title of it. So we got some really nice pheasant here, that the pheasant breast that we're getting ready to cut and slice up to make stir fry. I like to slice it in real thin slices. As you can see, it cooks super fast, so you don't want to overcook it. And if you don't have pheasant, quail, or some kind of wild game, use turkey. You can use chicken. You can make steak stir fry with this dish. It's simple. This is some really nice pheasant. If you can see, it actually has quite a bit of fat on it for a game bird, and you usually don't see that in a lot of game birds. So that's super good. So we'll get all this sliced like this. It don't have to be, I mean, you know, we're not trying to do it fancy here. We just want it sliced up and sliced up for the stir fry. And kindly when I cut it, I was wanting to show you, I debone it off of the breast of the pheasant. Actually take my knife or flaying knife or whatever kind of knife you have, it doesn't matter. And I will actually flay it off the bone. Then I'll cut the pheasant in slices. And as you can tell, pheasant has quite a bit of meat on it. This is just one pheasant, each side of the breast. So usually my family of 4, I can cook 2 pheasants and it feeds us, and usually we have a few pieces left over. So pheasant's really a good bird to have, good bird to kill, and it can feed quite a few people, and it's delicious. It tastes like chicken. That's what they say. All other game does. Tastes like chicken. But it's not as wild as some of the other birds. So what we'll do, and you notice that's why I got gloves on. Anytime I handle wild game or poultry, when I'm field dressing or cutting up wild game, I always wear rubber gloves. Just sanitation, keeps it clean. And plus, if I'm out in the field cooking, I can take my gloves off. I can put this cutting board to the side and I keep on cooking. I don't have the germs on my hands. Skillet is smoking hot, so it's going to sizzle. We want to put that in there. And of course, take my gloves off, fold them inside out. That way you don't contaminate nothing. You can leave that cutting board alone. I got all my clean stuff on this side if you're out in the field. So what we're going to do right here, we're going to take a small break. I'm going to wash my hands and we're going to come back and we'll cook the stir fry. We're browning this pheasant up nice. I'm just going to season it in the pan a little bit. Not a whole lot of seasoning because we're using, and I'm not going to lie, I could say, yeah, I make my own stir fry sauce and noodles and stuff like that. I don't. I use a stir fry sauce you can get at any store. It makes it simple, easy if you want a quick meal at night. Go and get stir fry sauce. These noodles is actually a fresh rice noodle that's like vacuum sealed in a package you can get that's super good. So there's no shame in, you know, when you get home from work, you don't have time to prep and cook 2 or 3 hours, so that you can still have a good meal and use some store-bought stuff. I do it all the time. You see, we're browning this pheasant up nice. We're going to cook it all the way through. And what's interesting about this bird is, you know, a lot of people didn't realize and don't realize that it's originally not a native species to the United States. And so that's what first got me turned on to making a stir fry. I started thinking about Asian flavors and it should be good with it. And you know, everybody likes chicken stir fry, so why not pheasant stir fry? Our pheasant is nice and brown, so I'm going to add a little bit of garlic, about a clove or 2 to that. A little bit of our stir fry sauce, so we can get that coating on the pheasant. About 3 teaspoons is enough. It goes a long ways. My oil's still in there. I just use the same oil, keep it in there, because it actually, by the time you get all the flavors in there, it absorbs up and helps coat everything good. I wish y'all could smell it because it smells super good right now with this stir fry sauce. So I'll let that get real hot. Let this sauce kind of soak into the pheasant for a few minutes, just like I'm doing. And that way, I always put sauce on everything, meat and all, that way it all has that flavor. You can put the vegetable stuff in the sauce, but a lot of times the meat don't get that crystallized flavor of that sauce on it if you do it all together. So that's why I try to do it separate. So every time you get a bite of that sauce. And I like garlic with any stir fry. So if you don't like garlic, you don't have to put the garlic in there. Okay, now to this, I'm going to add my broccoli. Add my carrots. Got one wanting to get away on us. Got a few snap peas. Then I got a bunch of mushrooms. As you can tell my cooking, I am a mushroom eater. I love mushrooms. So, you're always going to see me using a lot of mushrooms. We want to get that coated good. And we're actually going to add a lot of sauce now. Just put the rest of the sauce in there. I probably used half of a jar of the sauce that you get. Store-bought sauce is about what you end up using. If you want more, sometimes I'll put a dash of soy sauce, sometimes some teriyaki sauce in it. But the stir-fry sauce does really good. And you coat all your vegetables up. And you don't hear the sizzle right now because all your vegetables, you got all this fresh, cold vegetables that went in it, so it's got to heat back up. And it takes a few minutes to do that. And to this, we'll actually add our noodles. And that's just a rice noodle that you can get from the store, like I said earlier, pre-cooked, it's ready to go. I like putting noodles in it. It's going to be cooked so you can spread them apart. They're cold right now for the time being. So we'll let all this cook up, cook down, and then we'll plate. The smell is wonderful. It's done. Just take a look at it. I mean, it's just a beautiful dish. There's so many things you can do with wild game: pheasant, quail, turkey, deer, etc. I mean, list can go on. This is just one of many dishes that's one of my favorites to do with wild game, as far as birds, turkey, quail, or pheasant. We're getting ready to plate this up. And I want to take a moment. The Appalachian Outdoors Club had a huge Kentucky Wounded Heroes hunt this past weekend where you'll see some of their footage on MTTV as far as hunting and stuff like that. But it kind of inspired me to get some pheasant. I helped just as a member of AOA with that. But it inspired me seeing all those guys killing a pheasant to make these shows this week on pheasant. So you'll see some film from that too, some footage of that along with my cooking show as inspiration, seeing them guys out there cooking. I can only serve this on a large dish like that, and then family style. And of course I'm going to sample this. So I'll just get me a little bit of all of it. The noodles is great. It kind of gives it a little extra flavor to it and a little more texture to it. So as you can see, I mean, that's pretty much the finished dish. We're done with it. It's another pretty basic one-pot meal that you can cook, share with your family, friends, serve it up with some egg rolls. We've made some of them on here, some wontons, something like that, something crispy, some bread, and enjoy. Let's try this out. So let's get a bite of everything. It's super hot. You can see me scream, don't think nothing about it. It's delicious.
Okay, my name's Jimmy Cantrell. I'm the president of Appalachian Outdoorsman Association, and we formed here in Morgan County in 2016 to be a community service. We not only want to be a community service, but we also want to contribute to the youth and families in our area and protect our Appalachian culture. By protecting our Appalachian culture, what we do is we know that this area was settled many years ago, and they used the resources out of this area for themselves to survive. We go back and we look at those things, and we want to preserve that heritage, that culture, and we also want to provide a service for our children and our youth and adults in our community. By doing so, what we do, we take youth out hunting on youth turkey hunts, youth deer hunts. We try to provide fishing and so forth for the recreational activities such as camping. We also have craft nights and youth nights at our clubhouse in Morgan County and at our range. We provide free shooting for the youth there, free shooting sports and archery. We're getting ready to build a pond so that way we can also provide some fishing for those youth. Anybody that wants to be involved can be involved. They just contact me. We're a growing organization. We're fairly new, and we try to support our community, and our community does a great job at supporting us. By doing so, you can contribute to us. We're a nonprofit. Anything that is contributed to Appalachian Outdoorsman is a tax write-off since we're a 501c3. and we welcome anyone that wants to come and participate. It doesn't cost the youth anything in the area to participate in our activities. Just contact me. You can do it through Facebook. It's Appalachian Outdoorsman Association on Facebook, or it's AppalachianOutdoorsmanAssociation.com if you want to go to our website.